Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Let Me In. If you wouldn't mind, if you have some time, I'd really appreciate it if you can just come on and let me in. Because, of course, I have some opinions, I have some things to say about this film, and so with that said, Let Me In is to, it seems, be a very mushy and romantic movie, but then is to also be a killing spree monster among us. And the most horrifying thing in this movie whatsoever is to be that Owen is getting bullied. So, with that, we kind of teeing it up. We start out with Owen, who is to have this kind of odd way of doing things. It seems that Owen is to be wearing a mask and is to bizarrely pretend that he's going to be this like mugger. What a weird person to go on and choose. But then also we have Owen, who has a telescope, who is looking into his own neighbors through his apartment complex to see if he can go on and see something that he wouldn't normally. But then when he's also to be looking around, he notices that there is a new person that moves in, a little girl and a much older man. And so, the funny thing about this movie is, one, the kid that is to be Owen in this movie goes off at some point later to become Nightcrawler in the James McAvoy X-Men movies, and I thought that was kind of cool. But not only that, we also are to find out that this movie is to be a remake. The original, of course, is Let the Right One In, and so I guess they just had to shorten the title to Let Me In. And so, with that said, so we have Owen, who is to take his Rubik's Cube outside consistently and play around at night, and it seems that Abby is to consistently be going out there with Owen to simply talk to him. Abby wants nothing to do with Owen, as she is to consistently state. But the further and further that they keep talking, it seems that something is going to happen with the two of them. And so, beyond that going on in this movie, we have Abby's father that is going on a killing spree. He is in desperate need to every night go on and find some car to slip his way into, to then, when the driver is to get in the car, drive on. We then have Abby's father that goes to kill these people by knocking them out and then taking them to some woods to cut them open to drain all of their blood. Or, in which that I would like to say it, blood! 'Cause it's funny. So, blood. So, we find out that there is something very wrong with Abby's father, but then we also are to find out that there is something fairly wrong with Abby. And so that leads us to go on and have Owen figure out what that is. And come to find out, Abby is to have a much bigger secret that she is going to need to go on and tell Owen at some point, when Owen seems to start figuring it out and putting the pieces together. So, this also leads to have certain policemen who are figuring things out also, putting the pieces together. And so, with that said, this creates for a fairly interesting movie. As well as also Owen getting bullied. And him going on and doing normal kid-like stuff. But the one thing that I liked about this movie is we had Owen, who it seems when he is with Abby is to possibly become a different person, a much more stronger person literally and figuratively. But Owen is to, when he's with Abby, not feel desperate, not feel like he is to feel when he's just at home dealing with his mother or dealing with his dad that really doesn't care about him, it seems. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just go into the double 5 time territory, because I think it's about that time yet again to just go into spoilers about this one. I would say that this movie is a okay movie. It's very simple, it's very slow, but I could like this movie compared to a lot of others. when really going into this film, I like the mushiness. I like how this isn't your traditional vampire movie approach. And also, when they go into doing those sequences where Abby is to have to monster up, oh my god, is she just attacking? And I'm like, wow, okay, all right, this is pretty awesome. So with that said, let's go on into stating this movie is available on Tubi, TUBI. Justifiably, there might be a number of other apps that might be available, like Vudu, to possibly watch this for free, but I'm not quite sure. But if you cannot go on and find a reasonable way to say they could see this movie, you can, of course, also go on into any new released review that I've gone on and done through the plethora of time that I've been here. And you can see a number of apps that you can see a number of things for absolutely free. So, with that said, let's double 5 this bad boy up. It's about that time, of course, to yet again go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time to spoil this movie. So, in the beginning of this film, we have a guy come into this hospital who is seemed to have dipped his face in acid. Sounds like a horrible way to go. So, this guy is to come on in, and so the policeman, who of course is Elias, a lot of people would go on and know him from being Casey Jones in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, but he was also in The Shooter, so good for him. He's been in a lot of things, but normally those are my go-tos for Elias. So we have this policeman who is to talk to this man and is to ask him if he is to be involved in a Satan cult following, or if he is to know any of the other members who is to be a part of his regime or his cult, because at some point the policeman will go on and find out who they are, because they are that good at figuring out who these people are, I guess. So this guy is just desperately trying to get something on this guy to answer, so that way they, of course, can book him when he is out of this hospital. So when the policeman is to go on and take this phone call, we find that this man had taken a swan dive right out the window to his death, as the nurse is to go on and spot that this guy is dead. Be like, ah! You know what, in all honesty, in any horror film, I honestly would not believe a nurse or a doctor or a policeman, because they've kind of seen it all. They've kind of seen everything. And you wouldn't think that somebody would be screaming about a guy falling to their death. But I guess that's just me. Like, oh no, the carnage of it all. Maybe it's a person who hasn't been here long enough. I don't know. So, come to find out, that event happened 2 weeks earlier than where this movie really starts. So, there's a build up to that moment, bizarrely. So, we have a kid named Owen, who it seems is putting on this kind of see-through mask and is to have this knife, and he's to pretend to be some guy who hurts people or mugs people. I don't know why this kid decides to choose this, But I guess when Abby is looking at what Owen's doing, is like, man, like I want that one because he's perfect. Oddly enough, strangely enough, so he's preparing for what I'm going to need him to do in the future. It's going to be great. So, but we have Owen that is to make his way to this telescope of his to be peeking at his neighbors. Come to find out, we have a passionate moment between these neighbors that are to, of course, to lead to some disrobing. And so that, of course, is when we all of a sudden have the neighbor looking into the window. We, of course, have Owen drop down, and it seems throughout the rest of the movie we consistently have these weird, goofy eyes between the two of these neighbors, like, I saw what you did. And so when Owen is to look back, he instead is to realize that his show is over. So instead, Owen is to make his way to spot Abby and a older man that is with her. That is to more than likely be her father. So Owen, it seems, is to go on outside and come to find out that this girl is to be barefoot walking around, and it's wintertime and it's snowing outside. Did they give her like fake feet, or is she just walking around in the snow just owning this like I'm like, man, this is kind of crazy, like we're having this girl who's just like barefooting it all during the winter time, it seems. Unless they have like fake snow and it's actually just like, oh no, it's like 70 degrees out and whatever. Anyways, so we have Owen who is playing around with his Rubik's Cube outside and is to meet with Abby. And so Abby is to go on and state that she doesn't want to really like talk with Owen or anything. And so Abby is to notice that Owen is to be playing with some toy. And so Abby is to state that she likes puzzles, and so Owen's like, well, hey, maybe you can figure this out, and all you need to do is just kind of get the things together, because Owen is kind of confused that Abby's never heard of a Rubik's Cube before. And so Owen is to state, like, well, hey, like, Abby, like, when is your birthday? Like, do you celebrate it? And Abby's like, well, no. And so Owen's like, well, hey, like, maybe I can give this to you as a gift and say that, like, today is your birthday if you don't even know when it is. So Owen is to just give Abby this Rubik's Cube for a brief moment, or for another day. So Abby goes on, takes it, and so Owen goes off to school. And so we have Owen, who is to be classmates with a guy named Kenny, who seems to be pranking other people, and is to have this kind of long stretched rod that he goes on and pokes certain people and like, hey, what's going on? Or we have at some point where Owen is getting spitballed and all these kinds of other horrific things. So come to find out, when Owen is to go on and laugh at Kenny and write something down, but then not only that, is to then go on and go to this swim class where Kenny is also in the swim class, and the teacher ends up giving Kenny crap because Kenny is playing around with this girl's swimsuit, and it seems that the top part of this girl's swimsuit is starting to come off. And so we have the teacher who is to not take any crap, Mr. Zorik. And so Zorik is to go on and tell Kenny to do 10 or 20 laps in a pool. So, yeah, do 10, 20 laps pool, because that's what you're basically going to do anyways. Just go on and just take some more laps. Come on. Like, you're going to get I never really understood that in school, where you would just go on and get disciplined by doing extra work. I'm like, I'm already here anyways. Like, what's the difference? But then again, you would also go on and have, like, certain, like, sports teachers, or sports coaches, I mean, that when like the guys aren't doing well, they're losing, then the coach is to go on and be like, yeah, I'm gonna make them do these basketball drills more, I'm gonna make them run more, I'm gonna do all these drills and all this stuff, so that way like I'll just get them to like have more cardio because they're fat and they're slacking or whatever. No, they're all young and they probably couldn't give a rip, but they wanted to do something after school. But like half of the time, like most of those kids don't even get like the ball anyways. They don't end up becoming the star character in the sport that they're in. A lot of times they end up just being like, okay, well you're player number 6 out of 7, hoorah, whatever. So I don't know why I said hoorah there, but anyways. So, pushing on. So, we have Kenny that is to see whenever he's to get in trouble, Owen is just looking on like, yeah. So, we have Kenny that goes on into this locker room is to now find Owen like, hey, what did you write in your notebook about me? Tell me now. And so what they end up doing is they push Kenny down and they end up giving him a massive wedgie to the point he is to have his junk being crushed so badly that he ends up peeing himself. So, come to find out, Owen is to go on and have a bandage upon his face. And so when Owen is to meet up with Abby yet again, come to find out Abby had figured out this Rubik's Cube because I guess she had nothing better to do because she doesn't go to school because she is to possibly be a vampire. So she has nothing to do but time, so she figured it out. So Owen, when seeing that this puzzle is solved in front of him, Owen ends up asking Abby, like, well, wait a minute, like, how did you do it? And so Abby suggests state that she just twisted, and so Owen is just like, well, no, there's got to be more than that. So Abby is trying to show him how she did it, and so on and so. So Owen goes on to just like, wow, like this girl's like really smart. This girl's really good. Like I couldn't figure it out, and she figured it out in like a day. So Owen is telling Abby, it's like, well, hey, I can just kind of give this to you, and because you like puzzles anyways. And Abby's like, no. But if anything, Abby is to just realize that she should not be spending time with Owen. Instead, she is to go on and want to state to Owen, it's like, well, hey, like, if anything, really, I should not go on and be spending time with you. Like, how about you just kind of get out of here? And Owen's like, no, like, I've been here longer than you did. I've moved here before you have. So, how about you go on and you move? So, we have Abby who's realizing that, yeah, Owen's right. So, now let's go on and let's talk about Abby's father. So, Abby's father goes on to try to hitch a ride from a guy in the beginning part of this movie, and we have him go on to choke this guy out and then take him out to this forest where, or choke, like, we didn't really see exactly what happened, but maybe chloroform, maybe take him out some way, whatever, knock him out. So the father is to go on and take this guy out to the woods, tie him to this tree upside down, and then The father is to go on and slice this guy in the neck to have all this blood fall into this container with this funnel on it. So, as the father has gone on and killed this man, we have a point where the father goes on and tries to leave this guy out in the woods somewhere, and is to be walking around with this container. We have this guy who accidentally slips and falls, and all of a sudden the container ends up falling out, and all the blood is to fall out of it. So we have the father who is to be walking through this forest, and we have a car that drives by. And so when the father makes it back home to talk to Abby, Owen is to hear it through his wall. And so we have Abby yelling at her father, like stating, it's like, well, do I have to go on and do this myself? Do I need to go on? And so, like, shouting that, and I'm not quite sure what all is said here. So the father is to mention to Abby that, you know what, like, maybe I'm tired. Like, maybe, like, I want to get caught. Maybe I'm just tired of doing this. So we then have Abby, who is to get her meal if her father can't get it for her. So Abby then goes on to be at this little tunnel, as we of course have one of her neighbors who is going on a jog, because this guy is not only bench pressing his way, clanging and banging, but then also he is to be jogging, because this guy has nothing better to do. Oh, come on, I used to have that kind of life also, so anyways. So when we have this jogger, it seems, making his way to see Abby in this tunnel, we have this guy going on and asking Abby, it's like, hey, are you okay? As she is consistently asking for this guy to help her. And he's like, well, hey, what happened? Can you not get back up? Because she is to mention that she fell. And so this girl is to mention that she cannot get back up. And so he's like, well, okay, like, I guess I'll go on and I'll carry you. So we have this guy who goes on and picks up this girl and has her first, like, put her arms over his head, and then is to grab onto her legs and just kind of like hold on to her, to try and quickly get her to where she needs to go. Then all of a sudden we have Abby in this tunnel who is attacking this man, and we don't have one moment where this guy tries to defend himself as per usual in these kind of films, but instead we have Abby who's going wild and murdering and killing this guy horrifically. And so, come to find out, Abby, after all, does go on and get her meal. And then we have the father who is to find out what Abby had done, and is to then go on and try to dispose of the body, so maybe people won't go on and find it. So, but of course, that eventually leads to policemen who are looking into these missing people, or to try to kind of figure out this pattern of these people who are to end up dead. As we end up finding the guy in the woods, and so, like, we start to realize it's like, okay, well, somebody's killing some people in a pattern. So we have Owen and we have Abby, and so Abby is to also, when seeing Owen with his band-aid on his face, Abby asks what happened to Owen, and Owen is to state that he's getting, like, just bullied in class. And Abby is to say that she needs to, or she needs to have Owen realize that Owen needs to go on and fight back. That he needs to punch harder than they can punch, and like he needs to defend himself. And Owen's like, well, like, but what if I'm not strong enough? And Abby's like, well, then maybe I'll go on and I'll help you because I'm much stronger than I look. It's like, yeah, yeah. So, and I thought that that was kind of cool. So, Owen then goes on to go to school and, or no, we have Owen and Abby that, like, end up hanging out together as we have them go to some arcade where it seems that they can kind of exchange certain tickets and whatever to get certain prizes. At one point, Owen is to share a now and later with Abby, and Abby ends up barfing it up because, of course, she's like, well, I think I can just have just one. And then she realizes she can't just have any one of those. So we also had Owen, when he was to be at this same place, was earlier to spot these knives and was to at some point want to get one and to possibly just defend himself because this is a bad neighborhood, as we are to go on and find out via a serial killer and a monster that is within his neighborhood. Unsavory place. So we have Owen that goes on with Abby, and when she is to barf up the now later, she's not going to be having it now or later. We have Owen that is showing concern for Abby, and then after that, it seems that both of these two hug it out. So Abby's like, okay, like this, like something's happening here. And the further and further something is happening, we then turn around and have Abby, who's talking to his talking to her father, and he is to go on and state, it's like, hey, can you not go on and hang out with that Owen kid anymore? Can you not hang out with him, like, just for me? So, because realizing that Abby's father is not going to go out and be doing any dating, swiping right on anyone, so anytime soon, because he's also a serial killer. So we go on to have Owen and Abby, and they're continuing to be together, even to the point of Abby is to ask Owen, it's like, well, hey, like, do you hear us arguing because you're like a neighbor of ours? And Owen ends up asking Abby, it's like, well, hey, like, what were you guys yelling about? And so, since Abby knows that Owen can hear them, we then have Abby who gets by this wall and is to like kind of knock on this wall, and Owen is to reply. So it seems that both of them end up coming up with this like bizarre Morse code, and so I thought that was really interesting. That's pretty fun. Because it also reminds me of like Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon would go on and hear what's going on in Leonard's room, and Sheldon would say, "Hey, maybe we should come up with a Morse code," and he'd be like, "Nah, nah, 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 nah," and then, so Leonard was just like, "What? Like, what are you doing? Like, go back to sleep." So we have Owen and Abby, and so when Owen is further to go on and go to his class adventures, when Owen, it seems, is to be with Abby, we are to have Owen who seems to be more confident. Owen is to go on and ask Dr. Zorik if he can go on and do weight training. And Mr. Zorik is like, hey, you want to be strong? And the kid is like, well, yeah. And Mr. Zorik's like, well, we make you strong. So I thought that line was so interesting that I had to go on and quote it the way of the accent. So we have Owen that takes his weight training class, and it seems that he's getting stronger. And so we have Owen and Abby that are to hang out at this special place that Owen is to know exists. So Owen and Abby go to this place, and Owen is to mention how he, of course, was to know somebody who was down here, and they used to like play all the time, and like it was a guy that's probably older than him. So Owen and Abby go down here, and so Owen wants to cut his finger to have them both make a pact, and wants Abby to do the same thing. But immediately when Owen cuts his finger, Abby is to see that there is blood that has dropped on the ground, and she starts lapping it up, sadly like a dog. And so we all of a sudden have Owen realizing that something is wrong here. So we have Abby who is to get up, and her face is to be a little bit different, look a little bit different. And so Abby is to run off in a rage to find some couple where she attacks them, and while like this couple is walking a dog. And so now we have Abby that is to be killing people seemingly out in the open. And so we have Owen that goes back to his home, to his room, and we then have Abby that comes into Owen's room and is to take everything off that she has, and slips into Owen's bed. And Owen's like, "Oh my god, you're not wearing anything," as he's not actually looking at her to be a gentleman. And so, plus, she used to have blood upon her face also, so again, he'd probably be freaked out by that. So, Abby is to, of course, obviously take everything off because her clothes are probably bloody, but Owen realizes how cold Abby is, as Abby has gone on and stated the reason why she is walking around barefoot is because she doesn't get cold. So it's like, wow, okay. Like, that is some weird. Like, somebody is really living way up north, for sure, if they've gone on and done that. So, Abby ends up to uh like leave because before the morning. And so Owen had asked Abby the night before if they wanted to go study, like basically possibly be boyfriend and girlfriend. And Abby's like, "No, I don't want anything different, I don't want anything to change." And Owen's like, "Oh, okay, like then don't be my girlfriend." And Abby's like, well, if we go steady, will anything really be like different than what we're already doing? And Owen's like, no, like it'll all just be the same. And Abby's like, oh, okay then, all right. So as we are starting to see like there being a possible relationship between these two, the more and more they interact with one another, the more we have again Abby's father, who is to just feel more and more like, God, like I have to just continue to kill people for my daughter. This is like really just weighing down on me, because we'll find out why. So we have Owen after it seems that Owen and Abby are going study now. Abby is making Owen even more confident of a person. So we have Owen that goes on this field trip to go to this ice hockey rink, it seems, or this place that is to, like, I don't know why this gym teacher would go out to this ice hockey like place, or this place that has, I guess, thick enough ice. I would just imagine that a like a floor hockey would just be good enough, but I guess not for this film. So, but the only reason why we have this scene is to have there be fear that Owen will probably get dunked in a shallow or thin part of ice here, and that's what we have to naturally assume. Plus, also, why would you go on and give any number of these kids probably like hockey skates? I'm assuming that they're just kind of sliding on ice, anyways, which is, again, stupid. Because you can go on and have any number of these people fall on their butts without any kind of padding or whatsoever and get a concussion, whatever. So it doesn't feel worth it. So we have Kenny and his gang, his group of bullies, that are all going on to Owen is like, yeah, like, we're definitely going to go on now and dunk you into this water. And so Owen is to grab this pole, this metal pole, and he is to realize now that he's going to stick up for himself. And so Owen then is to take this metal stick and is to tell Kenny, it's like, well, hey man, you better back off or I'm going to hit you with this. And Kenny just tells Owen, it's like, yeah, right, you're not going to hit me with this, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to hit you with it. And then we're going to go on and we're going to dunk you into this cold water. Have fun with that. So when Kenny gets closer, Owen smacks Kenny with this thing. Kenny goes down and his ear is cut open, gushing with fluid, gushing with that blood. So we now can possibly understand why Kenny becomes this bully, because after it seems that Kenny is getting his wound, his ear wound, bandaged up, the principal or whoever is dealing with Kenny is to state that they could have gone on and expelled this kid, like Owen really cares, in all honesty. So Owen then is to find out that Kenny has an older brother, and his older brother is giving him crap about him now being a freak, or him having the bandage on this guy's ear, and so he's kind of touching it and pinging on him. So now we can kind of really figure it out here. Why, of course, Owen is bullied by this guy is because Kenny is getting bullied by his older brother. So if I haven't stated that already at some point. So we then have to go on to what happened 2 weeks now. So we have at one point where we have, of course, Abby's dad, who goes off to do another killing, and Abby is asking her father, it's like, well, hey, you going out tonight? And he's like, well, I guess I have to, right? Because, of course, this is all for you. So he goes out there yet again to go on to try and kill another person by sliding into the back of their car. But this time around, we come to find out that this guy is to go on and pick up somebody. And so he's like, oh, crap, the guy that's in the back seat, who of course is Abby's father, with these garbage bags and all to try and like hide the fact that he's going to go on and need a different thing of clothing to hide the fact that he killed somebody. So the father then goes on to kind of just be quiet back in the back. And so we have at one point where there's a gas station moment, and the father is still thinking that he can probably go on and just kind of be fairly quiet. But it seems that this guy that was picked up by this driver is to consistently go back in the back to just kind of grab things from his bag and so on and so forth. And that leads to this guy discovering this guy in the back seat. So this guy springs up Abby's father, takes control of the car, starts driving it, and then all of a sudden we start to find out that the driver of the car is scrambling with a number of guys to try and follow this car and to try to figure out what had all happened. So we have this car get into an accident. And so when the dad is to realize that he may go on and get discovered here, we have this guy who goes on to the one and only thing that could possibly write him off here, to hope that this does not come back to Abby, by having himself with this container, and he opens it and he pours acid all over his face, hoping that they probably would not go on to identify his face, get his dental records, whatever, through possibly pouring acid upon this guy's face. But considering this guy is to go on and not do this really well, then yeah, doesn't really work out. The guy is still alive and in complete agony. The guy should have just shot his own head off for whatever good that would do. So this guy ends up going to the hospital, and we have the policeman who's working him over. And so we have Abby that finds out in the news through this radio about some killer who is being contained. And so Abby's to hear this, and she's like, oh my god, this must be my dad. Because we, of course, have Abby every time that her father goes out, is to kind of wait by the news, the television, or the radio to listen in to see if there's possibly a killer who had been caught. Immediately having Abby realize that this is her father. So if we haven't had Abby fly into Owen's window before, now Abby's going on and flying to her father's bedside, where when this call is happening, we have Abby who is to have her father go on and have Abby drain her father's blood and then push him out this window to have him fall to his death. And that's what we see 2 weeks ago. Or 2 weeks earlier, or 2 weeks later. So, whichever. The Thing. The beginning of this movie. So, we have Abby that goes on to have to tell Owen that she's a vampire and that she needs blood to survive, and Owen, of course, is to not be running and screaming for the hills. So we have Owen who goes on to sleep in Abby's place. And so Abby is to go on and leave Owen a note stating that she's in the bathroom, don't go in there, and that she really does like Owen. So, come to find out, we have this police officer who's going through this neighborhood trying to find out if the police officer can go and find out any leads here. So, we have the police officer who's to ask one of these men, and he is to state that, yeah, he was to be attacked by some girl some time ago, and this little girl, and the policeman is to ask, like, well, hey, like, was this guy with her, this older guy? And the guy was like, no, I've never seen that guy before, but I think he might, uh, or I've never like talked to, or like much seen that guy with that girl, but like I think they did move into our apartment complex some time before. And so the policeman goes to find the address of uh, this uh, this people, and so he knocks on the door, and we have Owen going to the door, realizing it's the policeman, and the policeman has already gone on to his place and asked for his mother to kind of ask them about anything. So we have the policeman who is to hear a creaking from this place, and so the policeman breaks in, trying to find out if there's someone here. Owen ends up hiding in a part of this place where the guy cannot see him, and so the policeman goes on to continue to look throughout this entire place, going into the bathroom, and come to find out we have Abby, who is to have this sheet over her in this tub, and she's sleeping. We also try to have the policeman who is to try to open up these blinds, and as he does, we start to have Abby, who is to start to burn up her leg. So we immediately have Abby that is starting to attack this policeman, and as of course Owen was trying to get this guy to not go on and hurt Abby, it seems that Abby is going to go on and hurt this policeman. So as Owen is watching on as the carnage is unfolding, as this policeman is getting devoured, we have this policeman who's reaching for the door, and Owen is to go on and shut it. Just be like, I'm sorry, but you're gonna die. So after Abby is to be done killing off this policeman, she then, with her blood-soaked arms, wraps them around Owen and hugs him. So we even have at one point where even when Abby is to have blood on her face, she does kiss Owen, and Owen has blood on his face now. So yeah, some odd things happen here. So we are to have Abby tell Owen that she needs to leave town. She needs to get out of here. Because, of course, once she's killed a cop, she really needs to go on and get out of here. We also had it where the neighbor that Abby was to go on and bite, it seems that since Abby didn't go on and snap this woman's neck, like Abby had gone on to do with the other guys that she had gone on and consumed before, we have this neighbor that is in this hospital room, and once they are to open the blinds of this hospital room in the morning, this girl is to burn up to the point of her like bursting into flame, and the nurse end up bursting into flame, and both of them end up getting killed. So we have Owen that is going back to his normal day, and so Owen, it seems, is to finally go on and do this swim class, as Mr. Zorik is telling Owen, it's like, well, hey, like, you want to learn to swim now? And then Owen's like, sure. So Owen is starting to learn to swim, and come to find out we have Kenny and his friends going on to create this fire. So we have one of these bullies telling the teacher that there's a fire over here and for him to go out there and look into this. So we know that all of this is to really just to be that Kenny and his older brother are now going to get even with Owen. So Owen, who is trying to get out of this pool, we have the older brother of Kenny pushing him back in there, and so, or kind of getting him back in the pool, either one way or the other, if he wasn't already out of the pool, because Owen tries to run to his locker, tries to get this knife, and really that just has the guys like, come on, like, we're just gonna rustle this out of your hand, and then you're gonna go back to the pool whether you want to or not. So, Owen ends up to have this older brother of Kenny's give him a challenge. If this kid can go on and breathe underwater for 3 minutes, then this kid will get a cut by his neck. If the kid doesn't last for 3 minutes, this guy's going to get a cut in the eye. So that's Owen here. So this guy has to tell Owen to get a really big breath, and so this guy pushes Owen down. So all of a sudden, while Owen is starting to be stuck underwater, we all of a sudden start to see something unusual within this water. We start to see certain people's bodies and pieces being shoved into the water, have people be dangling upside down, kind of being pushed through the water, and we start to have some blood that is to go into the pool. And so as Owen is to pop back up after he is to possibly had choked on some water, we then have Abby looking on as Owen is perfectly okay. And so as he looks up, he sees Abby. So it seems that Abby could not go on and leave Owen, as well as now, like, Owen, it seems, cannot go on and leave Abby. To the point also where when Owen is to go back to his home and try to ask his mom a question where it seems that she is fast asleep, we have Owen calling his father and asking if there is any real truth about, like, real evil. And considering this was like a cryptic kind of thing for Owen to ask, his father is to go on and state, well, like, Owen, like, what has your mother told you? Like, what kind of stuff is she brainwashing you with? And so on and so forth. And Owen's father is to tell him, it's like, well, yeah, I know, like, the last couple of months were really rough, but, like, I'm sorry. So we have seemingly this conversation coming to an end, and Owen tells his dad that he loves him, and the guy hangs up. So Owen realizes that he cannot go to anybody but Abby for help or for understanding. And so the next thing that we end up seeing is that Owen is to run away with Abby to have them be on this train somewhere. And so Abby is to be in this crate, and we, of course, had this guy asking for Owen's ticket. And we have both Abby doing this whole knocking Morse code thing, and that's just how the movie ends up finishing off. So, with that said, hopefully I've covered most of this film, as there might be some details that might have been out of the order of which that the movie was to be a thing. But I really just wanted to go on and just state a number of things that were just in this film, whether they were in order or not. But with that said, I'm just going to go on and get out of here so I can go on and do something else for today. So, goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody. before we leave here, I know this movie probably talked about this and mentioned it, but I feel that I should probably go on and state the one thing that I probably had forgotten about while kind of talking about things. Because I felt like it was kind of obvious, but we had Owen while talking to Abby. We have Abby mention that she has been 12 for a very long time. And so it seems that Owen is to see this photo, this very old photo that has a Abby in it, and is to also have possibly a younger version of what Abby's supposed father is to look like at a younger age. And so we can now state that Abby's supposed father was to have really just been her lover all along, who had just, sadly enough, aged out. And we could consider that Abby can just go on and get every single one of these kids and get them while they're young to manipulate this kid to then go on and have Abby being taken care of, as Abby is to realize that she needs to go on and find a new suitor, a new man. So she could really go on here and really just have a pattern of this, of going on to the next person and the next person and the next person after they have all died off. And we could have obviously, like, maybe had like a brief, like, kind of time period of things, all leading up to present day, where we could then state that Abby has kind of been doing the same pattern for a number of years, and this is to be the next up person. But again, that'd probably be a lot of money thrown away into this film, but still. It would be interesting to kind of have like a kind of brief montage of like time periods and Abby going through all of these other boys and so on and so forth. So, with that said, yeah, I think that's all that I wanted to state here, but I think I kind of left a big elephant in the room about this film. And so, with that said, I think I covered everything else. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I forgot about. I know there's probably a number of things that were out of order, but anyways, I'm going to say goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.